Man, even as I write this, I question why I'm not saving this one for a Repaints Palooza. But I feel like this one needs its own video. And I actually managed to get them together so I can finally update you on the Bumblebee RC, since I promised you that I'd do that when my copy was so heinous I couldn't confidently give it a real evaluation. What's funny is that the same arm was stuck on my new copy as well, but with a small amount of force, it actually cracked whatever glue was holding it down. Unlike the previous version I had, where after I finished the video, I actually twisted the arm till it was destroyed, which led to an interesting result. Apparently the plastic is rubbery enough that it never snapped. Instead, I managed to get it to rotate a full 720, and all that happened was that the mushroom peg got about twice as long and started veering off in a weird direction. Anyways, for my new copy, I do find myself liking it a little more now, despite the fact that this one also has problems. The feet are still loose as hell, the backpack wants to unpeg even more than the last one, and sadly, the other one had a more satisfying transformation step because the windshield snapped very positively into place. Here, that step feels like a soggy noodle pulled up out of the garbage disposal. But with the transformation actually working and the posability not being ruined, I would say that this is a decent figure now. But I must profess, I still don't see the hype others are giving this thing. Is it better than the RC? Sure. But you'd have to tunnel to the center of the earth to fail to cross that bar. Does that mean that this figure should ever be in the running for best ever? No. I like this thing on probably a 6.5 out of 10, and it might be a 7.5 in terms of quality. Looks really good, poses really good, transforms decently, and has a tolerable alt mode. But there is still not one single 10 out of 10 aspect to this figure. Pretty good, but with a few more snaps in the transformation, it could have been great. Bet you didn't think you were signing up for a mini RC review when you clicked on this video, did you? Anyways, I'm trying to get as close to 9K subscribers as possible by the channel's second birthday in 2 weeks. So if you enjoyed this video by the end, please consider subscribing. Your likes, please give. The sad version really seems to help motivate people. And without any further ado, it's time for Bumblebee movie Ironhide. Am I correct in thinking that this is the last Bumblebee character who needs a figure? If it is, what a strange way for the line to go out. What's funny is that the last time I did this, I didn't quite get why people were upset at Ratchet because underneath its bad QC, it was a very good figure. Nah, this time I understand. This thing can barely stand up and it's really pissing me off. I know there's a pretty good figure in here, I've seen it before, but I can say that now I sympathize as to why people were having a hard time recognizing that before. After this is over, I am going to load this thing down with some joint tightener and probably be a lot more happy with this thing. It's actually kind of shocking just how much the paint job makes this feel different than its mold forebearer. Ratchet felt like a jacked guy who was kinda dumpy. Ironhide here feels like all of the dump. He is the king of chunk. And they didn't remold the torso at all. They just changed the deco and picked out his ab section a little less. Interestingly, the alterations made even extend into the color blue they used for the clear plastic. The Ironhide is a lot darker and a lot richer than the Ratchet. I kind of love it. Reminds me of those old kids' swim goggles that you'd wear at the pool that really did a better job trapping the water against your eyes in all its chlorine-y goodness than it did protecting them against it. Anyways, yeah, this is really showing off just how much deco can change the whole vibe of an almost completely unaltered figure. It hits different like this. Hell, even the head feels smaller now. I mean, I suppose it was always small, but this is doing the exact opposite. Where the red made the body feel bigger, here it now makes this part feel smaller. Or maybe it just made the body feel bigger and it didn't change the head, so it just feels smaller, but either way, it's a pretty solid dome. I can't actually tell just how much of this is different than the Ratchet. Is it really just the mohawk and the lack of a forehead crest, or are there some subtle sculpting changes in the face? Looking back and forth, I can't tell. It feels like maybe Ironhide is a little gaunter with sharper cheekbones, and I think his mouth might be a little more open, but it is hard to make out any difference. What's funny is that this one has almost identical light piping to the Ratchet, but it actually still feels brighter here because the head is overall darker. So it's better than average for this feature, but I still wish this didn't have it at all. So this might be slightly less interesting having a color scheme that's not as striking to the point where I question why they led with the Ratchet, but it is justifying its existence on look alone. It manages to feel very different despite being the exact same figure. Now I'm not going to talk about accessories, cause this thing just comes with the same gun Ratchet did, but in black this time. And I've already covered posability, and the only thing that's changed there is that now I call inwards handbends narcissarists after you guys voted for that. So no new information there either. But transformation on this guy is actually worse, despite being the exact same. That's largely due to the loose tolerances, causing him to not hold place during the whole thing, making it a lot more frustrating. But also because while Ratchet had that problem with the arms protruding from the underside of the alt mode depending on whether or not they felt like it, this one is much worse about that. I still to this day cannot figure out what is going on with this transformation to make that part variable. I have no idea why sometimes these parts can just go, and other times you have to completely untransform the back half and then retransform it again to get this damn thing to work properly. And here it's less cooperative than ever. It's honestly kind of miserable. Every time I do this, I have to run through the transformation like 5 times before the arms decide they're going to cooperate. It is an immense frustration, tainting what would be an overall smart and fun conversion. Also, the mushroom pegs the legs are on like to pop out when going through this process, and that was not a problem before. So this even has new issues, not just exacerbated old ones. And the alt mode is mostly the same as it always was, though weirdly it looks lower to the ground and sleeker. Honestly, in the red, it kind of has High Moon Optimus Prime vibes, with the gray pieces at the rear looking like the backwards pointing smokestacks from those games. This is almost like the dragster version of Ratchet's Weird Space Ambulance. Unfortunately, it's almost impossible to get this thing to roll well since the arms never want to play nice. So yeah, weirdly, once again, the deco here manages to make this thing feel amazingly different, while actually changing very little. Ultimately though, I'm going to say that you probably don't need this thing, honestly. It's pretty much in every way worse than the Ratchet. Robot mode, while being its own thing, manages to hold your attention less than the Ratchet, despite my initial predictions that it actually looked better, but in hand, there's just something less magnetizing about it. It's got worse tolerances, making it a chore to handle, and while that's fixable, I shouldn't have to fix it. Okay, so the Ratchet was bad at this too, but that was the first run of this design. Here, now, by this point, they should have fixed that. They've had half a year to improve this, and it's only gotten worse than ever. Posability is the same, gun is the same, alt mode is overall a novel experience when compared with the normal version, it looks interesting and cool like it is, but in essence, it is the same thing, just with a slightly new aesthetic. And the transformation getting there is now worse, both due to those shittier than ever tolerances, but also just because of how the weird quirk with the arms has become a lot less benign. It was already annoying enough with the Ratchet, but here it feels like the problem has been multiplied. It is a frustration that makes me never want to flip this thing between modes. When it's in robot mode, I don't want to go into the vehicle because it's a pain in the sack, and when I get it correctly into the alt mode, I don't want to go into robot mode because that would ruin the work I just tried so hard to get right. This thing isn't bad, you shouldn't flee from it or anything, I just question whether or not your money would be better spent on something else. I mean, this guy didn't even get any lines in the movie he was in, so he really was just there as an easy repaint of Ratchet. You will probably like this thing if you get it, but I sincerely doubt any of you will love it. Before I go today, I actually want to talk to you about something serious. I know for sure that one of you out there is struggling, and I am positive that there are more of you as well. I've wanted to do this for some time now because I want to try and ensure that you all live the happiest lives possible. As someone who a few years back lost a family member to suicide, I can tell you that as much as it may sound like a cliche that couldn't apply to you for whatever reason that you can think of, it is never the answer, and it would hurt those you leave behind in ways that you can't even fathom. I don't want you to feel sorry for me, I just want you to understand that I do know what it's like to lose someone that way. It doesn't matter how you think it will turn out. It will take a toll on everyone you leave behind that you will never expect. Today is always the best day to be alive, and tomorrow will always be better. I'm going to leave some mental health resources in the description. If you need them, please, I'm asking you to use them. Don't go thinking that you don't deserve it. Don't go thinking that you are wasting someone's time. There is nothing wrong with getting help, and anyone who tells you otherwise is broken. You matter. And that's not half what I have to say, but it's enough for now.